heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I want the money, the power, respect, and I heard you.
Welcome to the big picture for the second straight week without my co-host Dylan Bear. He decided to take an extended vacation. This time I am joined with my good buddy AJ Riley, who you might know. We already do a show together, Beyond the Box, an all-football show that airs on Tuesdays, I believe. Last week it was Matt replacing Dylan. This week it's AJ. Doesn't have the same level of voice quality, but certainly has excellent insight. So we're going to get started with one of AJ's favorite topics, and definitely I think his favorite sports team in the Detroit Tigers. But this is not really a happy Tigers episode. You see, Casey Mize, oft-injured Casey Mize, is being shut down from throwing once again, and this is becoming quite problematic for our number one overall pick. AJ, what is going on, and what does this team need to do to get him back on the path?
Well, you say off injured, but I mean, this is really the first time in his short major league career that he was injured. However, it wasn't a matter of if with Casey Mize, it was a matter of when with Casey Mize. And I remember, I believe when we were talking about the draft and the way that he profiled, I believe we talked about this. Like, we knew that there was going to be, with the mechanics of his delivery and the arm slot that he throws from and the types of pitches that he does throw, this was going to be something that came down the pike for the Detroit Tigers at some point. Thankfully, actually, I'm glad that it's happening now. Because what needs to happen, to answer your question straight off, is he just needs to have Tommy John surgery. And he needs to get fixed. And he needs to be back. And here's the risk that they run with this is the longer that you delay in these observations or opinions from multiple sources, and I'm not against, I'm no medical doctor. I don't know that he needs Tommy John surgery. It's just, if I were a betting man, I'm betting pretty heavily on the fact that he's going under the knife for Tommy John surgery. It needs to happen sooner because of the recovery process. We've already lost Spencer Turnbull last season and now don't have him this season because he did not get Tommy John until July, I think. June, July. And he's still not back. And he's not going to be back probably until next year. So we're talking about a long layoff for Casey Mize if he does not get this surgery sooner rather than later, if that is what they deem that he needs. The precarious part about it all is that he's been out for months. And he started a throwing program and was throwing from 60 feet, trying to work up and stretch out that arm. And then when he started getting to 90 feet, that's where he started to feel the twinge again in the elbow. And when that is the case, it generally means Tommy John. I just wish that they would make the call and get him taken care of, because Skubal is carrying the load for the pitching staff. And he's doing a phenomenal job. And even when Mize comes back, he's still going to be the best pitcher that they have. But you need a guy like Mize to complement a Skubal to be a great rotation. And so I hope that they wise up a little bit.
See, I'm not ruling Mize out yet on being the best pitcher of the staff. I'm not saying he's going to be. Skubal has electric stuff, but Mize was the number one overall pick for a reason. You know, I find this interesting because it's something that we've talked about before, and it's one of kind of the few baseball things that we're in lockstep on. And we have discussed what is kind of right now still a controversial topic, but a lot of people are starting to come around to it, is the idea of preemptive Tommy John surgery. Because as you said, we absolutely knew coming out of college that Casey Mize was a huge at-risk candidate. And he was someone that the longer the season went, the more his body wore down. Specifically, the way that he throws his splitter puts a lot of stress on his elbow. And when he's not throwing that as well as he can, he's like a number 4 guy in the rotation. That's the quality of his stuff. And when he has that splitter working, he's a true ace-looking caliber pitcher. Well, you corrected me. He's not oft injured, but he is often discomforted, right? Up until now, he's battled soreness really his entire short career, but especially the longer he goes, the more innings that he throws, the more stress on that arm and elbow joint, the more discomfort, the more days off he's needed. And then this season, he, of course, didn't make it very far into the season at all, got shelved. We were hoping it was going to be a quick turnaround, a short DL stint. It wasn't. And then obviously now, as you already discussed, he had a throwing program. He was on his way back, and another setback occurred. And you hit the nail on the head where you said, we need to do this sooner rather than later because it's a long recovery process. But TJS is not what it used to be. TJS is something that pitchers recover now essentially just as strong, if not stronger than ever. Look at Justin Verlander, and I bring up Justin Verlander because he's ancient. And Justin Verlander is almost 40 years old. He is 39 years old. And he just had Tommy John surgery, right? And it was a lengthy recovery. He missed over a full season of baseball. He did not pitch for a very long time. He has been electric this season at 39 years old, off of Tommy John surgery, with some of the best stuff that he's had in his career. And he's always been electric. But for someone of that caliber and that age to go through it and come out the other side the way that he has, and you look at Casey Mize, right now, we're not quite ready to be a contending team. But the longer we delay this, Casey Mize is going to end up needing surgery at some point. If they just decide to give him rest, more rehab, slow down the throwing process, and try to bring him back in a few months when he's feeling less discomfort and when he's more able, that's a short-term solution. The way that he throws the baseball, in the way that his body is built, and really the biomechanics of how he throws, he is going to have these same flare-ups year after year, and he's going to eventually need surgery. So as you said, let's do it now. Let's do it in a season that, listen, we're not going to the playoffs or trying to do anything of note. Let's get it done now. Let's get it over with and get him on the path to recovery and really what should be a much less stressful future. You get this taken care of and you hope to not deal with this again for the next 10 plus years of him pitching.
Yeah, one point that I am going to disagree with you on is preemptive Tommy John surgery. And the reason why is because for whatever reason in this day and age of travel ball and things like that, and you're putting, I mean, legitimately I've heard of cases of 12, 13-year-olds going under the knife for Tommy John surgery, which to me is detrimental because
that's a little more than preemptive.
Well, that's what you said though. So for me, it's one of those situations when you see a problem, you diagnose a problem, you take care of a problem, rather than preemptively going in to do something that may not need to be done. Because Tommy John, and we saw this with Jordan Zimmerman a few years ago, but Tommy John surgery only has about a 10-year shelf life. So you want to make sure that you're not putting somebody in a position preemptively to actually not get the full benefit of what their career could be, right? If Casey Mize right now needs Tommy John surgery, great. He needs to get it, and he needs to get it done. It is about a 6 to 9 month recovery, though. And then that's... At least on top of then building up to pitch in the major leagues again, which takes a while, right? So I don't know what they're going to do. I will not be surprised if within the next week and a half the announcement's made. Is basically kind of where I've landed on this.
I just don't really see a world where he escapes without surgery and then doesn't experience problems down the line. I mean, you mentioned this when we drafted him. This was a concern the moment we drafted him. And when I say preemptive Tommy John, I'm not talking about children getting Tommy John. I'm talking about a guy like Casey Mize, really, especially his first year when he started having discomfort. But honestly, I would have done it after he left college. And you talk about the shelf life of Tommy John, but this is something that with modern medicine, we have really, I don't want to say perfected because it can always be better, but we have come pretty close to perfecting this. And when you talk about shelf life, you're talking about pitching, where the effect, where the adjustment holding up under pitching, right? We're not talking about in 10 years, say he pitches for 5 years and retires, in 5 more years after that he can't use his arm. It's not like that. We're talking about it holding up under the stresses of major league pitching. I want to be very clear right now, because I would never advocate for something, because I am, believe it or not, surgery adverse. I try to avoid it when possible, in most cases, going under the knife, because if you can heal naturally or through other means, it is generally better. I think Tommy John, for a lot of pitchers that are clearly at risk, is an exception because of how well that we've essentially perfected this surgery. And it's not something, this used to be career ending if you had Tommy John, or very career threatening. Maybe you may be able to recover, but it was a risky proposition. Whereas now, if it was, it is not. Who is the last pitcher to get Tommy John and not recover from it? I mean, I couldn't even tell you. It just doesn't really happen in the modern game. And I already mentioned Justin Verlander. So when you have a guy like Casey Mize, and not all pitchers are like this, but it is clear and obvious with what we know now, with the way that we talk about biomechanics, right? In every pitching staff in Major League Baseball, they have experts on staff that work with these guys. It used to be that you throw a baseball a certain way, and now we know everybody's body's a little different, and everybody can throw a baseball a little bit different for it to be safe for their body. But we know how to predicate where the stressors are, and you knew it. You knew it coming out of college. This is going to be an issue down the line, and it has been. If we had done this a year ago, where would we be right now? Which right now it doesn't really matter too much, because we're not a contending team when we're talking about in the team aspect. But you want to get his career on track as soon as possible, not him going backwards and having setback after setback. And that's what I talk about preemptive, is just head off a problem before it's a problem. And I know that something is like, well, why would you ever get surgery if you don't need surgery? Because we can very, very well predict right now a lot of guys. I'm not saying every pitcher should get Tommy John. I'm just saying that at-risk guys that you can pin down, this guy is almost for sure going to have a future where he needs Tommy John. I don't see the harm in doing it, and Casey Mize would have been a perfect candidate for that. But regardless, at the point that we're at now, we're both in lockstep. It needs to happen. And the longer we put this off, it's bad for Casey Mize's health, it's bad for his pitching future, and it's, of course, bad for the Tigers. So I would like us to stop messing around and just do it. And as you said, this may be announced in the next week or so that he's undergoing the knife, and then he's going to be shelved for probably close to a year. And that's fine. Like I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. When is Spencer Turnbull supposed to come back? Is he supposed to make it back this season?
I keep talking, which you're really good at, and I know you have more to say, and I will look that up. I was not expecting to have that off the top of my head. So,
you're the one that mentioned Spencer Turnbull.
I did, because it's something that's specifically, it's something that's specifically. All right, so just according to CBS Sports, Turnbull underwent Tommy John surgery in July, like I said, 2021, and is expected to miss most or all of the 2022 campaign. So,
which again, not surprising.
You see what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
Not surprising, but if you wait too long, then you not only don't get Mize this year, but now you have also lost.
You might not have him next season. Correct, and that's
which okay, so. Maybe you have enough, because, I've talked on my show, my Tiger show, The Corner. I know you have talked here on The Big Picture about the roster construction of the Detroit Tigers and how abysmal it is. But one thing that they have done is they have stockpiled arms. So maybe you are in a situation where you've afforded yourself a little bit of insurance in a way to have, say, Mize out this year and next year, while Skubal and Faedo carry the weight, and then next year you get Skubal and Turnbull and Faedo to carry the weight while Mize gets healthy, and then you look to 2024 where all four of them are in the rotation. Obviously, barring injury to Faedo or Skubal, but then you kind of look towards that year as, okay, you want to talk about rebuild being over in 2022, but yet the team is 10 games under 500 as they stand going into their series with the Toronto Blue Jays this weekend. Maybe you have to kick the can down the road a little bit while you acquire bats that you apparently forgot was part of the game of baseball while you were building this roster, and then look to the future of 2023, 2024, where they're all competing and all healthy. I don't know. I would rather not get started on Al Avila and roster construction, but at least you've afforded yourself, in one sense, a bit of insurance with the amount of arms that you have.
In good arms. Faedo has been brilliant lately. You've already talked about Skubal as the clear ace of the staff. I think once recovered from Tommy John, that Mize can work himself up into that discussion because I love his repertoire. He has 4 or 5 plus pitches. He can, he can be number 2. They can be dueling. We'll have dueling aces. Listen, I've seen Tigers.
Would be great, right?
Of course, I've seen Tigers pitching staff with 4 aces. I've seen it. You've seen it, right? It would be nice to get back to that level of pitching. I miss that. I miss when we were just lighting people up with our pitching.
Don't forget when they had Verlander, Scherzer, David Price, and Anibal Sanchez, who was the league ERA leader.
ERA this season,
not a great stat.
If you lead the league in ERA, you had an exceptional season. You never didn't have a great season.
It's too dependent on other factors, not necessarily the pitching performance. But anyways, this is not a.
I think ERA is pretty good. I think it's not a end all, but ERA is a pretty good metric. If you lead the league in ERA, you had an astounding season. I promise.
There's better, or you had a really.
I agree with that. But if you led the league in ERA, you had an astounding season. That's never not been the case.
It's a good starting point to start the discussion.
Things that are not astounding is when you lead the league in sexual assault cases. And that's
what a transition. Yes, that was the best. I know this is more of a serious show, but my man, if we had an award for the best segue ever, I think you just won it. Go ahead. Continue. Sorry.
I appreciate the kind words. Obviously, I am talking about Deshaun Watson, Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson, although we have never seen Deshaun Watson suit up for the Cleveland Browns, and God knows when he will suit up for the Cleveland Browns, because this saga just keeps getting worse. It keeps getting a larger black eye for the league, for Deshaun, for the Cleveland Browns, for the Texans now, for pretty much everyone involved. It seems like every day a new lawsuit is added. I think we're up to 26 now, which is quite impressive. The number came out, I think, over the weekend. 66 masseuses in 17 months. Deshaun Watson flying girls from all over the country to come give him massages and, let's be real, erotic favors, right? And that's what this entire thing is about.
Allegedly.
And I was just going to go there. Obviously, these are just things that he is accused of. But right now, it's not looking very good for him. And it's not looking good on several fronts. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Deshaun Watson is a great guy. And I'm not going to sit here and say that he's the most heinous individual in the world. Because I wasn't in any of those rooms. I am very glad that I wasn't. And I don't know what actually happened. What I do know is the process. And when we talk about things on the big picture, it's... as the name implies, we talk about things from kind of a managerial standpoint in trying to get a grasp of the big picture. And when you look at this from a process standpoint, across the board, this is horrible. We look at the reports about the Houston Texans that not only did they know about Deshaun's behavior, some people in the organization, but they enabled it. You see, apparently there were complaints early on, and someone within the Texans organization gave Deshaun Watson an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, to start having these girls sign so that he would not have to deal with these problems. So that is, listen, that's already a problem. We have another problem. Deshaun Watson, when the Cleveland Browns made the very, in my opinion, ill-advised decision of trading an absurd amount of draft capital for him and then doubling down by giving him one of the most ridiculous contracts in league history. And what's crazy is on this show, myself and my co-host Dylan, who is normally here, we talked about, just from a football standpoint, why we didn't like the Deshaun Watson trade for Cleveland Browns. They were going all in on someone that neither of us thought is quite good enough to go all in on. Plus, you obviously have the surrounding issues that back then weren't quite as bad, because let's not just paint the Cleveland Browns in a negative light. There were several teams trying to trade for Deshaun Watson. Really, the whole NFC South, basically. Everyone that wasn't the Buccaneers was trying to trade for Deshaun Watson. And then, of course, you had Cleveland, and there may have been some other teams in the mix. So this was several teams in the league weighed the risk and said, you know what, we're going to try and go get this guy. Cleveland Browns won the Deshaun sweepstakes. They had the happy ending. And obviously, at this point, it may not have such a happy ending, because now the NFL is involved, and obviously everyone expects a suspension coming. But day by day, as this thing stretches out, that suspension feels like it's growing. The league has not said anything yet. The league is done speaking with Deshaun. They're done meeting with him. His lawyer, Rusty Hardin, and other representatives of him, they just cannot keep their foot out of their mouth. They just keep saying completely out-of-pocket things. One day you have them talking about, the NFL did a very thorough investigation, but we might not like the outcome of it. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're just already setting yourself up. Because if the NFL essentially finds him guilty of misconduct and suspends him for a long time, well, now in every single case he's up against, their lawyer's going to be like, you admitted that the NFL did a great job investigating, and this was the conclusion that they came to. So that's just wildly out of pocket. You have Deshaun coming out saying he's never disrespected a woman, which, regardless of how true these allegations are, seems absolutely clearly untrue. I mean, maybe he doesn't view these women as women. I don't know. I don't want to paint him in too bad of a light, but this whole thing is just, the NFL, is sick of dealing with this. Cleveland might not have a quarterback for God knows how long, because while Baker Mayfield is still on the roster, he's not playing another down for them. There's not a chance in the world. He will watch this whole thing blow up and laugh his way all the way to the bank with his guaranteed $19 million in his pocket. Cleveland.
And he should.
Of course.
Listen, I don't, and here's, like, just to, like, throw this high-level managerial, like, first of all, I wonder if down the road there's going to be some kind of consequence for the Houston Texan organization, first and foremost. If these things turn out to be true, that they're providing him with a non-disclosure agreement to allegedly assault women, right? It just seems like, in the grand scheme of things, there's going to have to be some type of organizational consequence for that type of behavior. Like, you should not be enabling your star quarterback to do what he has been alleged of doing. First and foremost, from an organizational standpoint. Now, fly north to Cleveland. You have a quarterback who took you to the playoffs for the first time in years. Yeah, he might not be the best quarterback in the league, and yeah, he is probably a little too big for his britches. I understand that, but he's done your franchise good. And at this point, he owes you nothing. So to agree with you, if I was Baker, I'd be laughing myself to the bank with the $19 million guaranteed as well. I just can't understand from a management point of view why you ever thought this was a good idea. Pre-resolution, right? Pre-resolution, going and making a trade for a guy that you don't even know. What if he ends up getting the shoeless Joe Jackson treatment, right, and banned from football? Like, I don't think it's going to go that far, but you just invested $230 million into a quarterback that you don't know can even play it down for you, and most likely will not play it down for you for a very long time. It just screams of ineptitude from the Cleveland Browns front office.
Well, that's the thing to
Entire
me.
ineptitude.
It screams of being the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, this has been talked about ad nauseum. They knew that there was going to be potential issues with him playing this season, which is why he essentially doesn't have a real salary this season, and his contract is so backloaded. They were smart by Deshaun Watson and his representatives, kind of ridiculous by Cleveland to allow this charade. And honestly, Mina Kimes said it best. I don't know if you saw it. I shared a tweet actually earlier today. I love Mina, honestly, and I bring her up a lot on the show, but she always has a lot of good points, man. She said the Browns bet $230 million on Deshaun Watson because they hoped everybody would just move on. But the New York Times did something that the Browns arrogantly refused or pretended to do. They actually investigated what happened. And that's the thing that is most baffling to me. And I'm not going to get on a high horse and act like you should only hire Saints in the NFL. I am actually on record, on podcast and before, that I don't think if you are not in jail and you are an able-bodied person, you should be able to hold an NFL gig. I don't think NFL teams should be judge, jury, and executioner. I don't think the NFL should be this moral high ground. And unless you've done something even look at Michael Vick, right? How horrible the things that he did was. He served his time. He got released. He was able to come back into the NFL. And I don't know, I'm never going to compare atrocities. I'm not doing that. I don't want some people to think, oh, you're comparing sexual assault to beating up dogs or whatever. I'm not doing that. I'm just giving an example of someone that did something reprehensible, paid their time, came back, and then was in the league. I don't think the NFL should have this moral high ground of you have to uphold it. No, these are football players. And at the end of the day, you are trying to hire the best football players you can to win football games. So I'm not taking that road. But as a franchise that is going to invest, it is not just the money. In the cap hit, there is a hard cap, so the money matters a lot. And I think the money is way too much for Deshaun Watson. But you also gave up copious amounts of draft capital that you need to continue building this team going forward. And you especially need the cheaper talent that you can get in the draft when you're paying Deshaun so much money like you are. So to give up all of that capital, to invest so much in him, to have the presser and double and triple down on the decision to bring him in, to sit there and say that we thoroughly investigated and vetted him, we are comfortable with our decision, we think Deshaun is basically a stand-up guy, the greatest person in the world, whatever, blah, 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 blah. The fact that some reporter from the New York Times did a more comprehensive investigation than you did before investigating all that. Listen, if I would respect you if you came out and said, you know what? We did a thorough investigation into this. We are not very comfortable with what went down. We've had long talks with Deshaun Watson and his behavior. We've talked to accusers. What happened is not good. It's not good for anybody, and we are going to try to move on from this. Deshaun's going to get counseling. We're going to put steps in place so that nothing like this ever happens again. Everyone involved is going to take responsibility for it. But at the end of the day, we thought he could help our football team win, and we thought that he can improve as a human being and be a better person going forward. I would have respected that. Tell me this is a football decision, and tell me that it's not. Yeah, it might be a big deal what he did, but at the end of the day, we're still comfortable enough to bring him in, and we think that he's going to not do it anymore going forward. Anything, right? Which they're never going to come out and do. But don't sit here and tell us you vetted this guy, because you didn't. You knew what was going on, and you just didn't care. And don't act like what you were convinced by your investigation that everything's hunky-dory, and then give him the whole world, the whole keys to your franchise. A franchise, by the way, that is trying to contend for a Super Bowl. Because that's why they moved on from Baker Mayfield. And regardless if you think Baker Mayfield can be a great quarterback or whether you think he's a horrible quarterback, Baker Mayfield was the quarterback while the Cleveland Browns had the most success that they've had in a long time. Now, you may think it's similar to a Rams and Jared Goff situation. That Jared Goff was in a good situation with the Rams. Jared Goff happened to be the quarterback while they had a great period of success. And the Rams said, you know what? We need an upgrade to win a Super Bowl. They got an upgrade. They went and ran a Super Bowl. Won a Super Bowl. You may think that's what the Browns are doing with Baker and Deshaun. And that's fine. It's okay if they think that they're trying to get to the next level. But if you really have Super Bowl aspirations, and this is how you're going to get there, we talk about the capital that you gave up to get him. Well, you don't have a huge window. Chubb's legs are not going to last forever. You have to continue to pay guys. If you are trying to go after a Super Bowl, you are paying a lot to do it. You're paying Deshaun Watson a lot to do it. You've backloaded his contract. If you lose an entire year of Deshaun on top of that, there's a year of your window. What do you have? Maybe a 2-3 year window the Cleveland Browns have right now, unless they start nailing draft picks that they don't have. Yeah. So if you lose a year of that, this is just so much risk for a team that is trying to take the next step with so little upside and seemingly turning everybody against them. I mean, the NFL doesn't want to deal with this. Roger Goodell and the other owners, they don't like these headlines that are coming up every single day. And then the Browns, how does this get them closer to a Super Bowl?
Right. It doesn't. And that's the thing, right? Because at the end of the day, who's going to play quarterback for the Cleveland Browns this season?
We'll trade them Tim Boyle.
Okay.
The Lions can trade them Tim Boyle. Let's go, baby.
And we'll take Baker back.
I honestly don't.
That's
I would love to have Baker Mayfield in Detroit. I honestly don't know who the backup is. I don't know who's even on their roster quarterback wise besides Baker and Deshaun. Baker is. I don't think even they're delusional enough to think that Baker is a player that may play for them this season. They may try to convince him. Honest to God, nothing would make me more upset if Baker capitulated and said, "I'll play for you." That would kill me inside. I wonder if they would take. Well, we can't trade Jared Goff because of the cap hit. We literally can't trade Jared Goff. It's unfortunate.
I mean, they just throw out money, so why can we get them to cover our cap hit and then?
Well, it's not. There's rules, man, and the rules make this very complex. That's what's it would be nice to do a Baker for
apparently there's
Baker
not
for golf
rules for investigations, right? Apparently there's not.
Oh, there's going to be rules because the NFL is about to bring down the hammer. So as this evolves,
did you see the meme today though?
I've seen a lot. So you're gonna have.
It was
I'm not sure if you understand how little that narrows it down.
I know. The Browns front office. Did you do it? Deshaun Watson. No, man. Browns front office. Okay, here's $230 million. That was the extent of their investigation.
Oh man, that's fantastic. No, oh my goodness, it kills me because the Browns did what I've wanted the Lions to do for a long time. Not this offseason, but several years ago. They tanked properly. They hit on draft picks. They had a rebuild that they mostly did the right way. And they became a playoff team and a team that people thought could contend for a Super Bowl in the near future. I mean, actually, I think 2 years ago, the Browns were a trendy Super Bowl pick, like a dark horse team. Mm-hmm. So they did everything the right way for the most part, and then they just completely tanked it. And they tanked it over a guy that's not that good. So many people think, listen, I know people disagree with me on this, but Deshaun Watson is not an Aaron Rodgers level quarterback. He's not a Matt Stafford level quarterback. He's not a Tom Brady level quarterback. He's not a Drew Brees from 5 years ago level quarterback. That's not him. Okay. He's a little bit better than Dak Prescott level quarterback with less leadership quality than Dak Prescott has. That's the boat that he's in. So to sacrifice all the goodwill in the world, all the draft capital in the world, all the assets in the world, and possibly an entire season of your window, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I am rooting for failure. I am rooting for this to blow up in the most catastrophic way imaginable. It is a soap opera, and it's hilarious to me. Not obviously, I'm not talking about what happened. I can't control what happened, and whatever happened is in the past. Right. And hopefully, anyone that was harmed or assaulted, hopefully they get the justice that they are seeking. But moving forward, I am rooting for this to just be an absolute catastrophe for the Browns, for Watson, maybe a little bit for the Texans. Although I don't know how liable I know you mentioned that earlier. I'm not sure how liable they would be because obviously, or I would imagine, while they knew that he was flying masseuses from all over the place and had a weird thing, I would assume that they never knew the extent of what was going on and that anything illegal was taking place. You would hope. And if
plausible
they did,
deniability.
exactly. And if they did, it would be extremely hard to prove. But at the same time, the NFL may come down on them too, and they may take draft picks. They may find them. But I'm more curious to see what they do with Deshaun. And I saw on the Pat McAfee show earlier, I can't even remember who was discussing it. He said, I feel bad. I can't remember who was on discussing it. But they had one of their guests was on discussing it, someone very familiar with the NFL. And he said at this point, the way things are going, he could easily see it being at least a year suspension at this point, which I thought this was going to be like a 6 to 8 game thing. The NFL, it's hard to predict what they're going to do. And they often don't come down as hard on players as I think they should. I mean, look at even not comparing things, but you had Myles Garrett literally assault someone on a football field with essentially a weapon, taking a helmet to the head, and nothing like bad happened. But he played football way sooner than I thought he would have. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, like, you really want to keep out of the game, right? Look at Calvin Ridley. Gambling in his downtime, which regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, he's lost an entire season, right? And we don't even know when he's going to be back to playing football at this point. So if I look at that and then I say, okay, well, this is probably pretty serious. But at the same time, the NFL is in a weird spot because he has beaten all criminal charges. And I know that is not the bar for which the NFL punishes. And I know that they're evaluating everything as a whole. But at the same time, it's a fine line of, we want to show that this is not allowed, this is not tolerable, and we want to come at this with a heavy hand. But also, how much can you punish with someone that has technically not been found guilty of anything? I don't envy Roger Goodell's position on this. I don't. This is a difficult thing to do. I would love to see him suspended for a year, just because that's part of the process blowing up in Cleveland's face, which is what I'm rooting for selfishly. If he really did sexually assault, and I have no idea if he did, I'm not taking one side or the other, but if he really did sexually assault like 20 some women, he probably shouldn't play football, right? Like based on how, not my previous comments about it, if you're not in jail, you should be allowed to play, but based on how the NFL is ran today, based on the standard that we do hold these players to, whether you agree with it or not, if these allegations, even half of them are true, he probably shouldn't play football again. So how do you reconcile that? It's a tough place to be. I think he will play football again. I certainly do. But is he going to get a year suspension? Is it going to be the 6 to 8 games that a lot of people thought in the beginning? Is it going to be a 2-year suspension, which I don't think I've seen in the NFL? I can't recall a time that I can't recall like a 2-year just off the rip for one thing. No. Someone got a 2-year suspension. Like, that's very uncommon. So where does the NFL pursue this? And I think if you're looking at, they want to come down with a very heavy hand, what's most likely of that? I think it would be a year suspension, but it would still kind of surprise me at this point, because that's a lot.
Right. Is it though? I mean, he didn't play the entirety of last year,
but got paid, which still pisses me off.
Got paid. And it just seems like as the onion continues to be peeled back, it gets worse and worse for Deshaun Watson. Right? So I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility or even cruel and unusual for them to suspend him for a year. I don't know, just with the circus sideshow that this has been as well, it just seems like if you're going to make a statement, you have to get this right if you're Roger Goodell. And to your point, I don't envy him to have to make this decision. So, yeah, I don't see. I thought 6 to 8 games was light, truthfully. But I don't know where they come down. It's really hard to even try to predict because of the way that punishments in all of sports, truthfully, it seems as if these commissioners just kind of flip a coin and they're like, head severe, tail's soft. Oh, tail. So, 2-game suspension, and you get half pay. So, I don't really know. Like, this is not something I would bet on. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I were trying to pick,
I wonder if there is I wonder if there's a Vegas line on the incoming Deshaun Watson. They might find it too morbid. I don't know.
If there's not a line, then I'm disappointed in Sin City.
You know, it's wild too how different sports approach this. The most heavy-handed sport I can think of is MLB. MLB just drops the hammer on its players. You look at Trevor Bauer, who in immediate, before any proof, before anything, allegations, Trevor Bauer, he pitched 2 years ago, right? Like Trevor Bauer's been done for a fat minute, and many people would argue that he beat his allegations.
I think that this is just my opinion, and I want to be very clear that this is just my opinion.
What this show is. That's what this show is, baby.
I think there's a little bit of vindictiveness involved in that suspension from Rob Manfred.
Oh, there could be.
Listen, Rob Manfred is potentially the worst commissioner in all of sports. And Trevor Bauer was not a fan of Rob Manfred. When COVID shut down MLB, he hosted a baseball game on the fields of Arizona with MLB players and broadcast it live. I'm sure that Rob Manfred was not too thrilled about that. So my hunch and my opinion and my thought is that this lengthy suspension for Trevor Bauer had a very, very good
personal
amount of vindictiveness involved in it. Oh yeah. It was like, oh wait, his name came across my desk. Boom, terminate.
While we're talking about petty vindictiveness and suspensions, I know you saw 17 golfers were just suspended from the PGA Tour. 17. And the PGA came out with very stern remarks about the LIV Saudi-backed golf somewhat team-based tour. And I know you have a lot to say about that this week, AJ, for your big picture. This may be the first big picture you've ever done. I don't think we haven't done one with you, have we?
When we started the show and I moderated it, I never did a big picture. I just tossed it to you guys for you.
So now you get to do a big picture of your own.
So now this is going to be fun. We've come full circle, right? So today, actually on Thursday, sorry, this is broadcast on Friday, but on Thursday, the Live Golf Tour kicked off with their event in London. And if you've been sleeping under a rock, you don't know what's going on. But what has happened is there's this Saudi-backed golf league that is basically trying to compete with the PGA Tour. And they have poached a number of PGA Tour professional golfers. Now, this is not something that is new to the PGA Tour. And if you have tuned into Straight Shooting in previous weeks, Matt and myself kind of discussed labor discussions that golfers have had with the PGA Tour going all the way back to the 60s and 70s, and Jack Nicklaus actually being one of the front men when it came to these labor disputes, because the PGA Tour, for as great as the game of golf is, and everybody wanting to get their name on a PGA Tour card, the PGA Tour is a little too buttoned up, a little too shirt tucked in, and they need to take a chill pill. And the reality is they now have competition. And I'll tell you why they have competition. The Live Tour goes with the slogan, golf, just louder. And Paul, I don't know if you are aware of how this works, but to give the viewers an idea of why the PGA Tour might be in trouble, one of the best events that happens every 4 years is the Ryder Cup. And the Ryder Cup is a tournament that takes place with the United States and Europe. And it's a team formatted golf tournament, and it is insane. When you talk about best ball, you talk about foursomes, you talk about the crowd getting involved, and the USA chants and the Rory McIlroy chants and all these other I described it as a college football experience on a golf course is really what the Ryder Cup is. Well, Live Golf has kind of taken that and made it into a tour, an 8-tournament event that is going to be international, but also stateside. In fact, their second tournament is going to be taking place in Portland, Oregon, in a few weeks. And so, yes, today there were a number of names that you would recognize from the PGA Tour that teed off in the Live Golf tournament. Names like Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Sergio Garcia, Lee Westwood, Graham McDowell, Louis Oosthuizen, and a number of others. And they made a choice. They made a very specific choice. Because here's the deal with the Live Golf tournament. It is not a 4-round tournament. It's only a 3-round tournament. It's 54 holes. In fact, the LIV is actually a play on the Roman numeral of 54. Because if you birdied every hole, you would shoot a 54. And there's only 54 holes per tournament. Everybody gets paid. There's no cut in these tournaments. So that's already a boost. And the reviews from the players and the caddies at this tournament in London this week have just been phenomenal. There was one caddy that said, anything that we need. There was a gift waiting for us in the hotel. They booked our airfare. They booked our hotel. They paid for everything. And anything that we need, they get us. That's not the case with the PGA Tour. With the PGA Tour, if you don't have sponsors exemptions or exemptions from winnings or whatever the case may be, you pay to participate. And that's not a great way to attract the high flying players. The guys like a Dustin Johnson. When he doesn't have to pay to enter a tournament, when he is actually getting paid to be part of a tour, why would he not join that tour? Why would he not go where the money is? And so today, the PGA Tour did come out with a statement. Jay Monahan, their commissioner, sent a memo to current PGA Tour cardholders, and he said, I wish to provide you with an update and to share information regarding the current and former PGA Tour players who are participating in the Saudi Golf League's event today in London. He said, I thank you for your trust, patience, and loyalty. And then he went on to say, simultaneous to you receiving this memo, the players listed below, and he listed them all at the end of the memo, are being notified that they are suspended or otherwise no longer eligible to participate in PGA Tour tournament play, including the President's Cup. This also applies to all tours sanctioned by the PGA Tour, the Corn Ferry Tour, PGA Tour Champions, PGA Tour Canada, and PGA Tour Latino America. As you know, players listed below did not receive the necessary conflicting event and media rights releases, or did they apply for releases at all? And their participation in the Saudi Golf League Live Golf event is a violation of our tournament regulations. He went on to then say at the end, and this is where I kind of balk at what he had to say. This week, the RBC Canadian Open is a shining example of what you have created with the PGA Tour. A star-studded field, a committed sponsor, sold-out hospitality offerings, record crowds, and a global broadcast distribution. These elements are part of the tour's DNA, built on the likes of Jack and Arnie, furthered by Tiger and countless others, whose legacies are inextricably linked with each other and with the PGA Tour. This collective legacy can't be bought or sold. Well, Jay, I got news for you. The Live Golf Tour also had a star-studded field. It also has a very committed sponsor. It is sold out, and they have global broadcasting because they are broadcasting on the World Wide Web, commercial free, and on Facebook, and on YouTube. So they have distribution as well with a star-studded field. And I can promise you, as a golf fan, I'm much more interested in what Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson are doing on the Live Golf Tour than I am with whoever's doing what at the RBC Canadian Open. I promise you that. Now, here's one interesting tidbit that I'm going to leave you with, Paul, and this is from James. I want to make sure James Coolgan. He's a former caddy. He calls himself a former caddy and a current hack, but he works at golf.com, and he said this. He goes, I viewed the first 30 minutes of the PGA Tour and the Live Golf Open, or the Live Golf Tournament. And he said, this is how they compare. In the Live Golf Tournament, the first 30 minutes, you saw 60 shots, no commercials, and 2 pre-produced packages. The PGA Tour, 33 shots, 1 commercial break, and 11 pre-produced packages. The writing is on the wall right now, as it was back in the 60s for changes to be made to the PGA Tour. They kind of made changes back in the 60s, as Matt and I discussed on Straight Shooting, but they are in for the fight of their life right now because the Live Golf Tour is doing things right. There's team events, there's individual events, there's a lot of money to be thrown around, and they have a great field of golfers that are worth watching. So PGA Tour, unbutton the collar a little bit, untuck the shirt, chill out, and get to the point where you can work with Live Golf, not fight against them continuously. You've had about half of those 17 suspended players already resign their tour membership cards. So your little act of suspension was kind of pointless. Do better, be better, because you have a great game and you have a lot of personalities and great players. You just need to be better for those players that work for you and better for the fans that spend their money at your tournaments and take part in your distribution that's worldwide, which is not exclusive to you. So PGA Tour, be better. What about you, Paul? What's your big picture for the week?
Oh, I have one that's going to get a lot of hate, which, I mean, it's the theme. My big pictures, and I don't do this on purpose. I really don't. But for whatever reason, they err on the side of controversial. Although I do think, general public-wise, not too many people are going to necessarily disagree with the premise. But I know that there is someone among us at Detroit Sports Nation that is going to be extremely offended by it. See, I can kind of wrap this entire thing up very succinctly, and then I'm going to get into it a little bit. It's time to bench Draymond Green. If the Warriors have any intention on having a shot at winning this title, they have to bench Draymond Green. And I'm not saying don't use him at all, but he is not starting, and he is not getting the 35 minutes a night that he has been getting. You see, and it's for several reasons. And I'm not going to get into the whole how important has Draymond Green been to the Golden State Warriors era, the Steph Curry era, and all the titles and all the success that they've had, or is he a Hall of Fame player? Because he'll probably get in the Hall of Fame. But I'm talking about right now, in 2022, in the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics, the Golden State Warriors are lucky to only be down 2-1. And if they actually intend to win this series, it has to come at the expense of Draymond Green's minutes. One of the things that the Warriors are famous for doing is going super small ball. They played Draymond Green at center years ago with an ultra small lineup, and they just bullied teams. They overwhelmed them with offense. But they also played sneakily good defense. And yes, they were a little bit vulnerable in the paint, but Draymond Green was pretty solid there defensively. The problem is, and something that's been exposed in this series, and really the whole playoffs, they've just gotten away with it. Golden State's not guarding anybody. And especially high percentage shots and looks that they're giving up on the regular. The Celtics are getting to the rim at will against them. And unbelievably, the Celtics have missed a lot of bunnies. It almost cost them last night. They got to the rim constantly. Jason Tatum felt like he was 2 of 12 at the rim. I don't know the exact stats, but those high percentage looks that they're just getting all the time. And on top of that, and maybe it's because of how easily they're getting to the rim, maybe it's because of the way that the Warriors are not successfully switching, they're getting tons of open looks behind the arc. And the Celtics, who are a very good team and a very well-rounded team, they're shooting the ball very well. They don't they don't have the advanced offense that the Warriors have. The Celtics do not have the level of ball movement that the Warriors have. The Celtics go to a lot of ISO, which really in the modern NBA you see a lot of, but it frustrates me. I'm honest to God, I'm sick of seeing Jason Tatum go ISO because half of them end in a contested shot that doesn't go anywhere. But they're still getting a ton of really good open looks and high percentage shots. So if the Warriors want to combat this, with Draymond on the floor, he has not been any better on defense. He's been getting abused. Old man Al Horford's been abusing him. Williams, when he can play, and listen, they are very lucky that he has not been able to play a lot because he has been limited by injury. He is bullying them on the offensive glass, putbacks, defensively. Listen, I watched Draymond Green get put in a blender several times last night, and it's been a theme of this series. Draymond Green has more fouls than he does points through 3 games this series. Last night, he fouled out of the game, and it was, honest to God, it was a mercy killing by officiating. It was. He has been awful in 2 out of these 3 games and just serviceable in the 3rd. Their defense has been really bad, with or without Dre on the floor. If they have any hope of winning this series, it is going to be blitzing Boston with an offensive onslaught that Boston just can't keep up with, regardless of how poorly Golden State plays on the defensive end. You know me, in all sports, I am defensive-minded. I am defense first. But if there's one sport that you can get away without playing a lot of defense, it is the modern NBA. The way the game is called, the way that the game has gone with the three-point revolution, you can get away with lackluster NBA defense if you just blitz teams with more points than they have the talent to score on you. And the only way that they can do this is by going ultra small. We are going to swap Draymond Green in the starting lineup for Jordan Poole. Now, obviously, I don't mean Jordan Poole is going to play the 4. But Jordan Poole is going to go into the starting lineup. Dre's going to come out. And Jordan Poole, listen, he has not been lighting the world on fire. He's been okay. And his defense is nothing special. But the Warriors are not going to win this by suddenly discovering defense that they're just not, that this iteration of the Warriors is just not capable of. You have Looney, who really has got to have the stamina and stay out of foul trouble to play longer stretches of the game and be that rim protector, and just please, for the love of God, not let the Celtics get to the rim at will. And of course, on the other end, he has got to help create easy buckets. But that's your big. You have Looney, and then you are ultra small with your other 4. You got Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins. They're both 6'7". I don't care which one you put at the 4. I mean, we're playing positionless basketball. All right, we're playing ultra small. Steph's your point. Jordan Poole's your 2. You can do it however you want. You're not going to be good on defense, but you're already horrible on defense. You need to try to run them out of the building, and then you have someone like Dre that can come off the bench. They can give you those bench minutes. They can maybe abuse the Celtics' second string lineup a little bit because he's getting abused by the starters. But if you can have him coming off the bench, not being the liability he's been, whether it's the careless passes and the turnovers, whether it's he can't score. He is a complete on offense right now. They're playing 4 against 5 at best, and the Celtics have a pretty darn decent defense. He has been completely useless on the offensive side of the ball, and he is not making up for it on the defensive side of the ball. He is not. Listen, one of his best attributes has been the way that he fits in the system and his passing ability. He has pretty darn solid passing ability. That has not been there. You can only set so many moving screens in a game. All right, if that's all you're doing, you're not providing that much value to this team. They can work their offense completely without Draymond Green. And defensively, I can't see them getting that much worse. And at the end of the day, this is really a Hail Mary. I know that they're only down 2-1. I know that they've been close. They won the game 2 games ago, and they were close last night. They drew, I think, within 4 in the 4th quarter. The 3rd quarter, every single game, the Warriors have blitzed the Celtics. But it just doesn't matter when the Celtics... What if the Celtics start hitting all these bunnies? Then you're just completely done. Because as well as the Celtics have been shooting, the looks that you're giving them, they could be scoring even more. It's time for a Hail Mary. It's time to bench Draymond Green. Have him come off the bench and see what he can give you against the Celtics' reserves. Have him come in as a backup to Looney if you want to, but you've got to do something. And honest to God, I am just sick of watching what the Warriors are now. It is the most boring basketball. It's literally Steph making miracle shots and sometimes Clay hitting something. That's the whole Warriors game right now. It's not winning basketball against a team like the Celtics. Bench Draymond, at least give us something entertaining to watch, and see if you can score 140 points a game.
Sounds good. That sounds good. I think there's more of a Michigan versus Michigan State bias there, but that's just my take on it.
No, I don't care where he went to school. Draymond's bum keys. The thing is, the antics are endearing. The antics are endearing when they work and you're playing winning basketball and you're doing other things. When you're missing every shot, when guys are not even guarding you at the 3-point line and you're barely hitting the rim, or just completely missing, you're turning over the ball, you're committing foul after foul. Then the antics, they just wear even more. I mean, you're pushing guys around honest to God, he could be teed up 4 times a game. He almost got ejected 2 games ago. Last night, he could have easily had a couple tees. They let him get away with a lot, which he admitted himself. He said he's earned the distinction. He's earned the ability to get away with more because of his reputation, which is just absolutely preposterous. But he gets away with so much, and he's still fouled out. He's still averaging 5 fouls a game. Averaging 5 fouls a game. He fouled out last night. It's last night, of course, being Wednesday night. This is going to air on Friday. I'm just sick of watching him play. Warriors fans should need a break from watching him play. They probably defend the guy till their death. But I don't know how much more I can watch of him on the court. It's brutal.
And now we are signing off of the big picture. I am the guest host, AJ Riley, with Paul Rochon. Paul, thanks for letting me stop by, get that off my chest in my big picture, and hopefully Dylan and Paul will see you next Friday. Have a good week, everybody.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on a what?